So, how does a work of fiction become so real, so powerful that its symbols jump off the page and into our streets? Today, we're going to deconstruct The Handmaid's Tale and figure out exactly why this story has such a powerful grip on all of us.
I mean, you've seen them, right? At protests all over the world. These red robes and white bonnets. They've become this incredible, silent icon. But the story behind them, it's way more complex. And honestly, more cautionary than you might think. It's a real warning about just how fast things can change. So in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers, we're going to get into the historical truths and the narrative secrets that make this story so chillingly powerful. To really get the symbol, we first have to deconstruct the nightmare it represents.
All right, Section 1, Gilead's historical blueprint. The big question here is, where did this terrifying world of Gilead actually come from? Was it just pure imagination?
Well, here's the thing. The author, Margaret Atwood, is very clear on this point. It's not science fiction. She calls it speculative fiction. And to build the world of Gilead, she had one single, incredibly strict rule for herself.
And that rule was this: nothing goes into the book that didn't have a precedent in human history. That's right. Every single thing, the laws, the rituals, the punishments, it all happened somewhere at some time. Absolutely nothing was made up out of thin air.
And when you looked at it this way, you realize Gilead is this terrifying Frankenstein's monster, stitched together from the worst parts of our own history. You know, the whole handmaid system? That has echoes of the Nazi Lebensborn program, which was all about breeding so-called racially pure children. And the rigid, oppressive theocracy? That's pulled right from 17th century American Puritanism. It's a chilling collage of real-world events.
Okay, so the blueprint is history. But how does a society like that actually function day to day? Let's get into the mechanics of control and see how the machine actually works.
It all starts with a crisis, a plummeting birth rate. And this crisis becomes the perfect justification for the state's primary goal: complete control over reproduction. Suddenly, women's bodies aren't their own anymore. They're national resources, political and economic assets for the state to manage.
And this ideology drills down so deep that it infects how the women see themselves. The narrator, Offred, has this absolutely chilling moment of self-reflection where she describes herself as just a mound of flesh surrounding a womb that must be filled. It's the ultimate dehumanization, right there.
And control isn't just physical, it's linguistic. Gilead uses language to warp reality. Think about the names, like Offred. It literally means of Fred, as in property of Fred. It erases her real name, her identity. But, and this is key, Offred's internal monologue, her memories, her secret thoughts, that's her first real act of rebellion.
They even weaponize something as simple as color. It's a visual caste system. You see the color, you know the role. Wives in blue, aunts in brown, and the handmaids in that stark, unforgettable red. It's meant to symbolize fertility, sure, but it's also the color of blood, of pain, of ownership. Every glance is a reminder of exactly where you stand.
So, with guards everywhere and escape seeming impossible, what can one person do? This brings us to Offred's most powerful weapon, and it's not what you'd expect. It's all about storytelling as rebellion.
See, in a world that demands one single state-approved truth, just telling your own story is a revolutionary act. Offred's narrative, subjective, personal, sometimes even a little unreliable, that's not a flaw. That is the resistance. It's her way of saying, I was here, this happened to me, I remember.
She knows her personal truth isn't something that would ever make it into the official history books. As she puts it, her reality exists in the blank white spaces at the edges of print. It's in those gaps, where the real messy human experiences live, that she finds her voice.
But just when you think you've reached the end of her story, the book pulls the rug out from under you. There's one last section, a final, devastating twist that makes you rethink everything you just read. This is the story after the story. Suddenly, we're catapulted nearly 200 years into the future, to the year 2195. We're not in Gilead anymore. We're at a university symposium, where a professor's giving a lecture about these old cassette tapes that were found. Tapes that contain Offred's story.
And this is where the gut punch comes in. We realize that this incredibly personal, raw story we've just been through, we didn't get it directly from Offred. It was transcribed, edited, and even given its title, The Handmaid's Tale, by this male academic who frankly seems more interested in historical trivia than her actual suffering.
And this is the book's final brutal warning. The professor, Pyexedo, treats her account like a quaint historical object. He's dismissive, patronizing, he renames her traumatic testimony, The Handmaid's Tale, as if it's just some fairy tale, and it hits you. Gilead might have fallen, but the sexism, the dismissal and female experience that allowed it to rise in the first place, that's still very much alive.
So, here's the ultimate reveal. Tearing down a totalitarian state, it's not enough. It's not enough if the underlying misogyny that built it is allowed to survive. The fight is never really over.
And that thought, that powerful, chilling warning, brings us right back to where we started. Why does this story endure? Let's bring it from fiction back to reality.
So now, when you see that uniform, you understand the layers. It's a symbol against oppression, yes, but it's more than that. It's a symbol against the erasure of women's experiences and against the kind of deep-seated misogyny that just persists. It's a warning from a future that, remember, was built entirely from our own past.
And the story's relevance has just grown and grown over time. When it was published back in '85, it had an impact. But then, in the 2010s, it became a real-world protest symbol. And of course, in 2017, the TV show amplified it globally. It's created this incredible feedback loop, you know? Real politics makes the story feel urgent, and the story gives people a powerful way to protest.
Ultimately, the reason this novel endures is because it's a stark reminder that the fight for freedom is never, ever truly over. It shows us just how fragile our rights can be, and that we always need to be vigilant.
Which leaves us with one final, very important question to think about. We know that in the story, Gilead eventually fell, but its toxic ideas survived. So what warnings should we be heeding from this tale today?